everyone. I've chosen a new book for today and it'll take us through now till the end of term. The book that I've chosen is this one, and it's part of the Magic Treehouse collection, and this one's called Night of the New Magicians. Now the author is a lady called Mary Pope Osborne, and she wrote this whole collection of books and they are absolutely brilliant. My daughter read all of them. So before we start chapter 1, there are a couple of bits to read beforehand, and there's a bit that's addressed Dear Reader, so that's us, so we need to read that. And then there is the prologue. Now a prologue is the author's information before the actual story that just sets the scene of what happens in the story before we get going with chapter 1. So here we go. Dear Reader, for years I've wanted Jack and Annie to travel to one of my favourite cities in the world, Paris, France. Finally, one day while doing some research, I came across the perfect setting for a Paris adventure. The Exposition Universelle, or 1889, or as it's otherwise known, the Paris World's Fair of 1889. In the years before air travel, television and the internet, people attended world fairs to learn about the food, dress and customs of other cultures. They also saw exhibitions of the newest machines and inventions. During the late 1800s, the world was experiencing great technological change, even greater than the change that in our world today. Join Jack and Annie as they set out on a dangerous mission to that wondrous time. Ooh, sounds exciting. Here we go with the prologue. One summer day, a mysterious treehouse appeared in the woods. A brother and sister named Jack and Annie soon learned that the treehouse was magic. It could take them to any time and any place in history. They also learned that the treehouse belonged to Morgan Le Fay, a magical librarian from the legendary realm of Camelot. After Jack and Annie travelled on many adventures for Morgan, Merlin the magician began sending them on Merlin missions in the treehouse. With help from 2 young sorcerers named Teddy and Kathleen, Jack and Annie visited 4 mythical places and found valuable objects to help save Camelot. For the next 4 Merlin missions, Jack and Annie were told they must travel to real times and real places in history to prove Merlin that they could use magic wisely. First, they went on a mission to the city of Venice, and then they journeyed to the ancient city of Baghdad. Now they are waiting to hear from Merlin again. There's a magic treehouse that transports them around the world. That is amazing. I want one of those tree houses in my garden. Right, shall we find out what happens in chapter 1 then? So chapter 1 is called 4 New Magicians. Jack sat on the porch reading in the summer twilight. Crickets chirped in the Frog Creek woods. The bell of an ice cream truck jingled down the street. Annie stepped out the front door. "Let's go," she said. "Where?" said Jack. "Mum gave us money for an ice cream," said Annie. "Oh, cool," said Jack. He pulled on his backpack. Then he followed Annie down the porch steps. As they headed up the sidewalk, the smell of damp leaves and moss wafted from the woods. Annie stopped walking. "Listen," she said. Jack listened. "What?" he said. "I don't hear anything." "That's the point," said Annie. "A minute ago the crickets were blaring away. Now everything is super quiet." Jack listened again. Annie was right. All of Frog Creek Wood seemed to be holding its breath. "Do you think?" said Jack. "Maybe," said Annie, grinning. "Let's go check." Jack and Annie hurried across the street and into the dimly lit woods. They walked quickly between the leafy trees until they came to the tallest oak. A rope ladder dangled from the treetop. The magic treehouse sat high in the branches, catching the last light of day. Jack smiled. I guess ice cream will have to wait, he said. Yep, said Annie. She grabbed the ladder and climbed up. Jack climbed up after her. Inside the treehouse, dusky light filtered through the window. Lying on the wooden floor was a folded piece of paper and a slim book with a red cover. Annie grabbed the paper. Jack picked up the book. This must be a research book from Morgan, he said. The book's title was written in gold letters. Guidebook. Paris World's Fair, 1889. Let's look through the book. So do you think it went quiet because they were being called to the treehouse? Paris World's Fair, said Jack. Oh, that sounds like fun, said Annie. Yeah, but I wonder why we're going there, said Jack. This should tell us, said Annie. She unfolded the paper. Oh, it's Merlin's handwriting, she read aloud. To Jack and Annie of Frog Creek, I have discovered that an evil sorcerer is plotting to steal the secrets of 4 new magicians at the Paris World's Fair. Your mission is to find the magicians, warn them, and learn their secrets for me. The 4 new magicians are the Magician of Sound. His voice can be heard for 1,000 miles. The Magician of Light. His fires glow, but they do not burn. The Magician of the Invisible. He battles deadly enemies no one can see. The Magician of Iron. He bends the metals of earth and triumphs over the wind. Good luck, M. Our mission sounds more like a fairy tale than real life, said Jack. An evil sorcerer, magicians of the invisible, light, sound and iron. They sound like they belong to a magical place like Camelot, not a real place like Paris, France. But we're going to a World's Fair, said Annie. That sounds kind of magical, doesn't it? Maybe, said Jack. But why do such powerful magicians need our help in the first place? Why can't they defeat the evil sorcerer with their own powers? Maybe the sorcerer's power is stronger than theirs, said Annie. So maybe we can help them with Teddy and Kathleen's rhymes, said Jack. Annie gasped. Oh no, we need the rhyme book. We have to go back home and get it. Don't worry, I have it, said Jack. Ever since we got back from Baghdad, I've been taking it with me everywhere I go, just in case Merlin sends for us. Phew, said Annie. Let's take a look. Jack reached into his backpack. He pulled out a small book written by their 2 young sorcerer friends from Camelot. 10 magic rhymes for Annie and Jack from Teddy and Kathleen. Jack turned to the table of contents. OK, we've used 5 rhymes on our last 2 missions, he said. So we have 5 left for the next 2. We haven't used spin into the air, or make something disappear, or pull a cloud from the sky, or find a treasure you must never lose, or turn into ducks. Quack, quack. Jack looked up. Just kidding, said Annie. You better not make jokes about these rhymes, said Jack. You might end up saying the wrong one at the wrong time and get us really into trouble. He closed the rhyme book. Ready to go? Ready, said Annie. Jack took a deep breath and picked up the guidebook to the 1889 Paris World's Fair. He pointed to the title. I wish I could go there, he said. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster, and everything was still. Absolutely still. So they're off to Paris on a mission to deal with these evil sorcerers. I can't wait for chapter 2. Shall we read it now? Come on then. Chapter 2, A Living Encyclopedia. Jack opened his eyes. The scent of roses floated through the warm twilight. Jack was wearing an old-fashioned cap, a rust-coloured jacket and knee-length pants. His backpack had turned into a leather satchel. Annie was wearing a puffy white blouse and a long purple skirt with a ruffle. "Look, there's the Eiffel Tower." "The Eiffel Tower," she said. Jack looked. They had landed in a park filled with trees. Beyond the park, rising into the sky, was a tall tower with lights beaming from the top. "That's the Eiffel Tower, all right," said Jack. "But where's the World's Fair?" He opened their guidebook and found a map. "Oh, great! It looks like the fair's directly below the tower. That should make it easy to find." "Let's get going," said Annie. "Wait, we need to go over what we have to do on our mission," said Jack. "It's simple," said Annie. "We have to find the magician of sound, the magician of light, and the magician of the invisible, and the magician of iron. We have to warn them about the evil sorcerer and learn their secrets for Merlin." "That doesn't sound simple to me," said Jack. "It sounds like a huge responsibility." "So we better start now," said Annie. "Come on." Annie led the way down the treehouse ladder. Jack put their World's Fair guide into his satchel, along with the letter from Merlin and the book of rhymes from Teddy and Kathleen. Then he followed Annie down the ladder. As Jack and Annie started across the park, a clinking sound came from Annie's skirt pocket. She reached into the pocket and pulled out a handful of coins. "Hey, our ice cream money got changed into French coins," she said. "Good," said Jack. "We might need them at the fair." Jack and Annie followed a gravel path that led out of the park and onto an avenue lit by gas street lamps. Horse-drawn carriages and old-fashioned bicycles clattered over the cobblestones. They all seemed to be headed towards a crowded bridge that crossed a wide river. Boats were gliding down the river, their lights reflecting on the water. On the far side of the river, thousands of tiny lamps twinkled along the bank. The Eiffel Tower glowed in the silver twilight. "Paris is so beautiful," said Annie. "No kidding," said Jack. "Let's cross that bridge to the fair." They hurried to join the people streaming across the bridge. Jack and Annie blended in easily with the happy crowd. The kids in the crowd were all wearing clothes just like theirs. Most of the men wore black top hats and black coats and pants. The women wore hats as big as flower baskets. Their long, colourful dresses puffed out in back. There seemed to be visitors from many countries. Jack saw Chinese straw hats, Dutch caps, several Indian turbans, and a Mexican sombrero. "This reminds me of the carnival we went to in Venice," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack. "Except in Venice people were wearing costumes. Here, they're wearing real clothes. Remember, this is a World's Fair." "Cool," said Annie. Jack looked round. How would they recognise the 4 new magicians, he wondered. Would they be dressed like people from Paris, or people from another country? Or would they look like Merlin or Morgan in flowing medieval robes? And what about the evil sorcerer? "Looks like we buy our tickets over there," said Annie as they reached the end of the bridge. Jack and Annie headed for the ticket booth near the entrance gate. Above the gate, a giant banner that read, "Welcome to 1889 Paris World's Fair." As they stood in line waiting to buy the tickets, Jack pulled out their guidebook. "We need to prepare for our mission," he said. He turned to the first page and read aloud. "Welcome to the World's Fair, a living encyclopedia with over 60,000 exhibits from all over the globe." "Maybe some of the exhibits are magic shows," said Annie, "and that's where we'll find the new magicians." "Maybe," said Jack. He kept reading. This World's Fair is a showcase of progress. Discover the genius of man. Learn all about science and technology. See wondrous new machines and inventions. Jack looked up. He said. It sounds like this fair is mainly about inventions and scientific stuff. I don't see anything in here about magic or magicians. How many? The ticket seller asked gruffly. They had reached the front of the line. Annie held out a handful of French coins. 2, please, she said. The ticket seller took the 2 coins. Annie put the remaining change back into her pocket. Then she and Jack walked through the gate into the 1889 Paris World's Fair. So their treehouse has taken them to Paris, and now they're on a mission for Merlin to find these evil or to find the magicians and help them defeat the evil sorcerer. I can't wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow's chapter is called Magic Magicians. And we'll probably read chapter 4 tomorrow as well, which is called Wizard of Menlo Park. Menlo Park.